I'm grateful to Bruce and his team for having me here. I'm particularly grateful for the special stash of bourbon that he provided for me to talk for the next 2 hours. I'm a recovering Red Wings fan. I don't know what to do in the pursuit of Lord Stanley's Cup after the first round without a Wings team going on, so I'm a little disoriented. Likely one of my favorite topics, this idea of what's the next catalyst. I started my career in Chicago at O'Connor and Associates, which was a world-class derivatives trading firm, and I played an odd role there. I was a fundamental research analyst, and so I covered a group of stocks, and every morning in the morning meeting I get the same question, which is what's the next catalyst? And it's sort of fueled my ongoing, to this very day, 25 years later, fascination with what causes volatility, what causes movement in asset prices, and that gets to this whole topic of catalytic data, in which the corporate event data is a significant subset. Not the only piece, but a significant piece, certainly with the earnings and the dividends and the splits, has such great impact on equity volatility. So I've given this presentation quite a few times, certainly as Bruce mentioned, my pursuit of economic and financial glory with alphacution and the patent that I got as a door prize as I was not making any money, at least for the first go-round. There's so much. I think this topic is as important as it's ever been. Let me just see how to figure out. Do I go backwards? This one? All right. Some words with my picture. All right, so let's start with, since I'm following an academic, it makes sense. I did this accidentally, but it makes sense that we'll start with, we're going to have some philosophy class, and then we'll have some chemistry class, and then some design, and hopefully a few questions. So having a bit of a quant background myself, although the discussion is certainly not limited to isolated to quantitative trading strategies, although given what Joshua just talked about, you need to have a high level of automation in order to consistently harvest the value of catalytic data. So essentially, the first part, the philosophy part, is what we're really engaged in here is pattern recognition. And while the market data itself, the price data itself, is very, very important in terms of finding patterns, what's happened is that quantitative methods have become sufficiently pervasive that by default, the next level of pattern recognition is going to need different data sets and new tools. So hence we get to the increasing importance of looking at not only the time series data, but also the other independent sources that cause volatility. And as I get to later in the discussion, why this concept of multidimensional trading strategy is really what the future is about, which is using cross-temporal, cross-regional, and cross-asset class data to figure out what you're going to do in any specific product or asset class or region. I want to skip this. So very simple. What we're getting to these days, and there's some folks in the audience that care very much about text analytics as well, is starting to look at not only the patterns in the numbers, but also the patterns in the words, and using those together to figure out how to boost performance. When we look at the universe of products and assets and geographies, we have really a liquidity spectrum, which allows a level of turnover frequency depending on the nature of your trading strategy and the nature of your instrument complexity. And so we see this ongoing automation of what was essentially the manual world or fundamental research is really more of a, if you think of it more as manual research versus automated research. That's really what's going on here. Manual pattern recognition versus automated pattern recognition. And so obviously we have across the different categories of and expanding categories of data sets, both the numbers and the words, we have increasing standards which allow for greater automation, which allows the automated aspect of strategy, design, and implementation to happen across more asset classes, more turnover frequencies, including slower turnover frequencies where you have higher capacity. So this gets to and I think it's cut off here on the slide. Gets to a little bit of our chemistry lesson, which is thinking of data as having some kind of nutritional value. And that that nutritional value is going to be different in different use cases. Certainly, and maybe this next slide portrays it a little bit better, what we're talking about, a single piece of data that's very catalytic, you harvest a lot of its value if you use it properly in the context of your trading strategy. But that data isn't done being useful in terms of its nutritional value. If you combine it and turn it into multiple related data points, like a time series, then that data really has additional nutritional value if you think of it that way. I think where we're going, and this is my case for the multidimensional aspects of trading strategy design, is using multiple historically unrelated data points and data sets to figure out what your next moves are, whether they're offensive or defensive, whether you're a market maker and you're widening spreads or biasing your spreads, or if you're an investment firm trying to figure out how to optimize your execution or optimize your portfolio selection. So just a few more, just in the case of what I see happening is that with corporate events in particular, using those not only in context of and this is getting back to Joshua, your study as well, is not only the primary impacts of those catalytic data points and event types, but the question was there as well, the secondary and tertiary impacts. This is another part of the combinatorial nature and the nutritional value of the data, is that there are secondary impacts on the groups or the market. And so there's sort of a reharvesting of the value depending on how you combine. It takes more intelligence, it takes better tools, it takes better standards, cleaner data, but in order to reuse that catalyst for its secondary and tertiary effects, on top of the fact, or in addition to the fact that it could be useful for trading capital structure type strategies where you're trading fixed income versus the equity, whether you're trading cross-regional, you could have a global basket of equities that have this sort of catalytic overlay. And also another point, which gets to what Barry is working on, the upcoming data, is I think there's a whole new level, a whole other topic as well of enhancing the value of predictive analytics. We hear a lot of buzz, and it's largely marketing speak about we have predictive analytics, we have predictive analytics. I think like the efficient market hypothesis where you have a weak and a strong form, that in the nature of predictive analytics, by combining future data into your prediction, you actually achieve a stronger form of predictive analytics. We know a lot about the future, we just don't know how to organize it. And so this is part of some of the work I'm doing at Tabb Group to try and change or evangelize that what we have in predictive analytics is actually reactive. Now, it's the best we have, but now that we have new data sources and new tools and technologies and concepts, that the world of predictive analytics actually, there's a stronger form of predictive analytics that we're going to see come out using future data. The last point I want to make really gets to our syllabus portion on design, and this gets to what I was working on prior to Tabb Group with alphacution. In the quant world, there isn't a sensitivity to what the data looks like in terms of trying to, achieve some level of intuition. The quants will say, just give me the fire hose and let me figure it out with my pattern recognition tools. But I think that misses the different sensitivities of different roles and different players in the ecosystem of trading and investing. If you can turn catalytic data into a picture, and this was the thesis of the project that I was working on, and essentially turn this data into something that people can read and therefore gain some intuition, that new use cases and new intuition about how you use catalytic data will emerge, because the quants don't have a monopoly on everything that it means to view this data. So I got fascinated with, well, how do you present all this data that's flowing? And it turns out that in thinking about this, and this is a very old chart that I built maybe 10 years or so, it probably needs some updating, and I'm not sure it necessarily has the shape, but the essence of it is that there's this, at higher turnover frequencies, you can't possibly digest the data on human scale. But at slower and slower turnover frequencies, that having an interface to look at catalytic data is important for those folks that are designing and implementing strategies that have more human scale turnover. So that's really our design lesson, and I wanted to keep it nice and short. Didn't go an hour or two like I thought it would. Any questions about any of this?